Thank you, Your Excellency, for that comprehensive statement. On behalf of the AU COMESA mission, our last statement will be delivered by the Electoral Commission's Forum of SADC, and the statement will be delivered by Mr. Mpasa Mokochane, who is the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission of Lesotho and also head of mission of the Electoral Commission's Forum of SADC. Sir, you have the floor.
Master of Ceremony, allow me to align myself with the protocol already established. The Electoral Forum of SADC countries, commonly known as ECF SADC Observer Mission, comprise the electoral management bodies, EMBs, of the SADC member states. The mandate of ECF SADC is to strengthen cooperation among electoral commissions and to promote conditions conducive for credible and transparent election in the SADC region. The ECF SADC mission for the harmonized election in Zimbabwe deployed 38 observers from 10 electoral commissions from SADC countries, namely Angola, Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, and Zanzibar. The mission commenced its work on the 13th of August 2023. The preliminary statement will be available to this audience and shall have details of the following: the introduction, the background, mandate of the ECF Electoral Observation Mission, guiding principle, observation methodology, pre-election, election and post-election activities. It will, however, not include the tabulated results. The purpose of this presentation for release of statement by the International Observation Mission is to give a summary of which I'm going to present. And the summary will focus on the following: the preliminary findings, the election phase, and the areas for improvement. The preliminary findings are as follows. The state of preparedness by Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The mission interacted with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to gather information related to the 2023 harmonized election and assess its state of readiness. The Commission confirmed its readiness to the conduct of the harmonized elections, highlighting challenges they faced in the build-up to these elections. Pre-election issue raised by the stakeholders in the 2023 election. There was an expressed indication of confidence in ZEC's level of preparedness to conduct election raised by the participants. The stakeholders commended the successful implementation of the review of and the delimitation of the constituency and ward boundaries, which were considered to be long overdue. The mission was informed that SADC successfully conducted a mobile voter registration exercise. However, there were concerns about how the voter registration was managed, in that in most areas, the registration centers were difficult to access due to long distances. SADC was commended by stakeholders engaged for the quality of the voter education curriculum and quality of packaging of voter information, which showed significant improvement. Stakeholders were of the view that in the build-up to elections, there was a lack of or a limited collaboration with civil society organizations when compared to the previous elections. The meeting was informed that the electoral environment surrounding conduct of the campaign was generally peaceful and calm. Stakeholders aligned that there was unbalanced coverage of the electoral campaign messages, activities, and news by the public broadcasters. It was generally observed that SADC was not proactive, providing important information relating to the preparations for the conduct of elections. Stakeholders expressed general dissatisfaction in the handling and outcomes of the electoral law reform efforts. The nomination fees for the 2023 harmonized elections were described as exorbitant for ordinary citizens to afford. Media practitioners advised that the requirements and associated accreditation fees pose a challenge to the media coverage of electoral activities. The mission's findings. There were contrasting views whether SADC had strategies to deal with misinformation or disinformation on electoral-related matters that were circulated on the social media. SADC had made strides to implement administrative reforms based on the election observers' recommendation from the 2018 harmonized election. There was perceived public mistrust in SADC. The lack of the popularization of the delimitation report outcome by SADC, which had potential to affect the voter turnout. The constitutional provisions of the representation of women and youth in electoral process was highly regarded. Now let's come to polling day observation in summary. Some stations visited opened on time and broadly the opening procedure were followed, where the mission observed. However, some of the polling stations visited by the team failed to open at all. This was observed in polling stations in parts of Harare, Manicaland, and in Bulawayo province. The reason cited for the late opening was non-availability of local authority election ballot papers. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission issued a statement on the delayed opening of polling stations and condition for extending the polls. Due to the delayed opening of the polling station, the mission noted that the closing of polls would not happen in a uniform manner. It was noted that there were stations that only opened as late as 21 hours. Despite the challenge related to the late opening of the polling station generally, polling took place in a peaceful and secure environment. The key recommendations. The mission noted that the ECF SADC made the recommendation during the July 2018 harmonized election and during its pre-election assessment mission in May 2023. The recommendation made at the time are still applicable to this particular election. This included the following thematic areas: communication, the voters' role, and the logistics. The ECF SADC mission make the following key recommendation to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. A, the ZEC needs to pursue the legal reforms that are necessary to minimize the risk that arises from the following operation. This includes, but not limited to, increase the inspection period for the voters' roll and make the voters' roll available at polling station ahead of polling day. Determine a set period for the conclusion of appeal processes from the nomination of candidates, especially for the local authority elections. The introduction of technology to enhance efficiency in the electoral process, including the result management. B, the ZEC should strive to improve the implementation of its communication strategy to foster transparency, accountability, and facilitate public trust in the Commission. C, the ZEC should address the issues raised related to selective accreditation of observers and the dual accreditation of media practitioners. D, the delimitation process should be conducted in a more timely manner in order to ensure that it does not negatively impact the preparation for the electoral process. Furthermore, ZEC should make the process more conclusive or consultative and open to public participation. E, the ZEC should provide clear, regular updates to the electorate and stakeholders during polling day and in the period up the announcement of results. In conclusion, the 2023 harmonized elections were conducted within a context shaped by the legal framework, which largely constrained the technical and operational aspect of the Z network. The mission, however, acknowledged the efforts of the ZEC to propose reforms that are not adopted ahead of the 2023 elections. The mission congratulates the people of Zimbabwe on the manner in which they conducted themselves throughout the electoral period, despite the logistical challenge experienced during the election process. The contesting political parties and their supporters are commended for their spirit of tolerance during the electoral period. As the electoral process has not concluded, the people of Zimbabwe are encouraged to use the available legal means should they not be satisfied with the election outcome. Furthermore, ECF SADC encourages the people of Zimbabwe to continue to remain tolerant and peaceful in the manner that they conduct themselves. I thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the statement for ESF SADC countries. Before we move on to the next session of our program, I would just like to announce that other election observation missions will present their statements this afternoon at the Holiday Inn. And that is the Commonwealth, the European Union, and the Cairo Center. I would now like to call my colleague, Mr. Mafiri, to come and facilitate the Q&A session. Mr. Mafiri, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Annette. Good afternoon, everyone. Now we have come to the end of the presentation of the statement. It's now time for questions and answers from the public and members of the media. Please raise your hand. Tell us who you are, your name, the name of the media house, but also indicate where you are directing your question, whether to the Joint AU COMESA, SIOM, or the ECF SADC, in that order. Please raise your hand. I'll take a set of 3 questions at the beginning, then I'll take another 3 more thereafter. Thank you. That is one hand there. Number 2. 2 there. Number 3. Number 3 at the back there, in that order. Number 1 here, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Yvonne Muchaka. I'm a freelance journalist. Given your assessment of the environment, would you consider this is coming to the...
Apologies. Please indicate your name, the media company, you have said it, but also indicate where the question you are directing to which mission.
Thank you very much. My name is Yvonne Muchaka. I am a freelance journalist. My question is directed to the 3 observer missions. Considering all that you have said concerning the electoral environment pre and during the election, would you consider these elections to be credible? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your hand was up here, sir.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Mija. I'm also a freelance journalist. My question is directed at all the 3 observer missions. Considering that Zimbabwe's population is skewed to the majority of the people live in rural communities, I'm curious to find out, because from the presentations that I got, the reports that I got, there's no clear indication in terms of just the percentage of the coverage of the observer missions in rural communities. I want to find out, because what we see with the observer missions is they fixate themselves with urban centers, but the realities of the people who live in far to reach communities, did these observer missions, were they able to get to those communities so that they can engage the realities of these people as they cast their vote? Also the other realities of intimidation and so on and so forth. What is the reality that they faced out there in the rural communities, notwithstanding the work that they usually do in urban centers?
I think it's clear. Number 3 at the back there. Please take the mic to the back.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. My name is Charles. I am the National Election Agent of the Citizen Coalition for Change political party. Now the question now is there still any reason or basis for the missions to trust and have confidence that the result management is going to be transparent, is going to be correct and honest, given the context of the previous misinformation? Now, are we going to have proper results announced? Do you still have confidence that this will happen? The collation, the verification, the transmission of the results, and the announcement. That is my question.
Thank you very much, sir. Your Excellencies, the high table, there are 3 questions for all the heads of missions, together with their teams. Please indicate who's responding first. You will respond from your seats. Your Excellency, head of the AU mission. AU.
This first round of questions, we have 3 questions. The first one has to do with the election environment, and it's similar to the third one, but the freelance journalists wanted to know whether, since we all say that the security situation was calm, can we now say that elections are credible? And see, when you are observing elections, the observation of elections is very intricate. I always give example that somebody can rig election even before the election day. And it happens in some countries, where probably somebody has an interest, and that somebody that has an interest has access to those who register the voters. And if you know your opponent area, the voting, you know the areas where the support base are strong, and if the voting strength is strong, and you manipulate the process to under-register those people, this will happen months before the election. You have already rigged the election. So that what we comment, we looked at the pre-election, the election day activities per se, and processes after the election. Something that is a bit common in Africa, and common in the sense that it brings a lot of tension, is that the voting can go on very peacefully. But the process of processing the election, adding the unit results, taken to the next center, you add and taken to the next center. Some countries have up to 4 levels of addition. That process of managing the election to the point to be announced for presidential election could be manipulated, and sometimes you don't even know. I don't want to mention countries in there, but I've given some examples. There are some countries where you are not even expected to accompany the results at the polling point. After voting, you will be there, they will count, and the electoral management body will just take and you are not expected to even follow. And at the same time, you are not even going to challenge the process of presidential election for that particular country. So anything can happen, but I'm not saying things do happen. So we cannot use our statement that, look, on the election day and few days leading to the election that we're here, that the environment was peaceful. Everybody, I think reasonably, we met with other observer teams. Nobody said that there were crises. There were no crises in the field. We didn't observe. But that doesn't mean we can just give 100% credibility. You may not know what will happen the following day. It's just like the other question that the third person asked, that the ZEC, Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, assured us that they were ready for the election. They were about about 98% ready. They said about 98%. The assumption is that materials have gotten to all the areas where they're supposed to store the materials and move to that place, either with the police or branches of banks and things like that. But because that 2% caused a lot of problems and led to delay in so many words that elections have to be extended from one day. So you cannot, that's why we release our statements in phases. First, and we call it preliminary. Then subsequent releases will be based on how we monitor, how they manage the results, and so on and so forth. So we cannot, in all honesty, say that, yes, we said the environment was peaceful, so everything about the election is 100%. We cannot say so. We are still monitoring. The second person asks about the majority of the citizens living in the rural area. I don't know whether you base on a census result, because sometimes it's an assumption. Because Zimbabwe is highly urbanized. We know there are a lot of farmers, but most of these farmers also live in the urban areas, Harare, Bulawayo, and the provincial headquarters. These are all urban areas. So when we say urban areas, it's not just about Harare and Bulawayo. All the 10 provinces, their capitals, are classified as urban. Some of them, you get there, you may look a bit rural, but they are classified as urban areas. And I specifically asked, when our field officers were briefing us, in terms of the delay, because the greatest concern we had in the election on the 23rd was non-availability of materials for the voting. And I specifically asked whether those of them who cover some of the rural areas, whether they observe non-availability of voting materials, and they said no. So the problem was more of the urban than even the rural. So, but I agree with you. Sometimes you may overlook certain things, and it's difficult. Though Zimbabwe is an easier environment to manage. If it is like my country, when you have people living in isolated swamps in the riverine areas, it's difficult for observer mission to send people to all the rural communities. But we cover reasonably well, and all the provincial headquarters were classified as urban. So I think we covered. So we have an idea about what happens also in the rural areas. I think. Then the third question, which I touched, the member of the Triple C party wanted to ask whether, comparing what the ZEC told us, that they were 98% ready 2 days before the election. Then on that election day, we realized that they were not quite 98% ready, because so many words from their own report itself. From the statement they issued that first day, in Harare area, only 23% polling units voted. Only 23% from their own report. In Bulawayo, they didn't give report for 7 a.m., but they gave report for 9:30. I think 9:15 or 9:30 a.m. As at 9:30, 9:15 Bulawayo, only 75% places that the voting took place. So that is from their report, not from our own observers. So it shows clearly that there were issues in terms of the voting materials. But and you want to know whether because of that, like, okay, maybe the statement they gave us, either maybe some people will say the statement was untrue, or some people will say it was a liars. And you now ask us to use that one to judge whether we have confidence in the results that they will bring out. That, I don't know what my colleagues do, because we agree that everybody will comment on the trade based on his own perspective. So I'm not commenting on behalf of everybody. On my own, I cannot say that because there are some lapses in terms of election materials not getting to that I will use that to say the elections result will be manipulated or they will not be in position to give a credible results that credible. I cannot. I don't think it will be fair to them. They may have logistics issues, and we should deal with the situation as it is. I'm not also saying, I'm not in position to guarantee that whatever result they will release will be 100% accurate. I'm not saying so, but we believe and we hope that that delay should not affect the outcome of the results. Thank you. Let me pass on to SADC.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think we will take the position of AU COMESA on the first question in terms of can we immediately confirm that these elections were credible. I think in the manner in which the President has explained it helps all of us to appreciate the fact that the reports we have given today have done something. First of all, we have not been shy to mention to the Zimbabwean people and to the international community that all of us agreed that we saw calmness and peace, towards the election and even during the election day. We voted, the people of Zimbabwe voted on the 23rd and 24th. We witnessed there, and our reports stipulate each area, whether it was voters' roll, whether it was the ballots, whether it was the security. We have articulated our position in view of what we observed. But it's too early for us to say it was not credible. It's credible because the process is not finished. The election results are not even out yet. And like the President has said, you may raise your hand today and say, we are done and dusted and it was credible. Then tomorrow, you just get a shock of your life that everything is reversed in one action. So I think let's be fair with ourselves that question maybe is coming too far ahead. As SADC has guidelines and principles that we use to assess an election process. And SADC is clear today in our report. We have stated our position as to whether, everything was in place according to our standards and guidelines. And our conclusion directly deals with our position on that. And if you look at our conclusion, it will speak to you on that issue. On the question of, do we go into the villages or we just restrict ourselves to the urban areas? I think that the goodness of having a multiplicity of observer missions is that some of them have greater capacity than others. Those who have greater capacity are going to obviously go into more areas of the country, and others may not go as far, but everyone is observing, and that's why we do it together, because where AU went, probably we didn't go. Where SADC went, probably they didn't go. And generally we can bring the general feeling from across the country by bringing all these areas together in our reports. So I think, we have done our best as COMESA. We've been to all the 10 provinces. Did we go to every village? No, we didn't. But there were people there in those areas as well where we didn't go. The last one, yes, ZEC promised us in this very hall that they were ready for this election. And that really brought a lot of happiness to all of us. But life happens. Life happens like it happened on the 23rd, that what they promised us did not come to pass. Obviously, you noticed the uneasiness, the discomfort that brought along. Our responsibility as observers is simply to observe as to what kind of impact is that kind of situation going to have on the outcome of this election. And I think that's why we have been observing. And the rest of the concerns, we have raised them in our reports, and we have addressed the issues of ZEC directly in all of our reports. So I think that ZEC, it remains for them to assess what we have said, and the Zimbabwean people to make up their minds based on what we observed and what we think about the failure of ZEC to live up to their promise. But again, all that is in our reports. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. I will now... Apologies, EC have a response as well.
Thank you. The first question was about the credibility of elections. And we honestly align ourselves to the comment made by AU and SADC in the sense that election is not an event that happened on the 23rd or 24th of August. It is a process. And being a process, up to now, our statement, as you have listened to them, we are talking about what we saw on those days. And importantly, what we have seen is the peaceful way in which the voters had displayed themselves. So, as time goes on in the process, because we are still not yet in the final stage of the election, then when now we have concretized and complete everything, yes, we can come up with those words like credible and so on and so forth. On the deployment, that's correct that ECF SADC, because we're a small contingent on the observation, a group of 38 people in such a vast country like Zimbabwe wouldn't even think of deploying people. We managed only to deploy the small teams in about 5 provinces. And again, taking the time that we have arrived, it wouldn't be possible to extend our deployment to the far, far rural area. But as it has been said, we are a joint team. Some observer groups that came earlier with long-term observation, they have managed to reach to the furthest corner of the country. On the election management by ZEC, on the result management by ZEC, ECF SADC has employed ZEC to issue regular updates on the progress related to the result up until the announcement. So that will assist and be confident of the public to the public trust and confidence to ZEC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Members of the media, you'll appreciate that all the missions represented here will still do their post-election, and their final reports will be released. As we do the post-election, our offices also remain open in case you want to reach out to the mission leadership. We will take now the last three questions. 1, 2, 3. I'll add you to be the 4th one, then that marks the end of the question and answer session.
Thank you very much. My name is Andy Hodges from ZTN Prime. My question is for the head of mission for SADC, Dr. Evans Mumba. Dr. Mumba, I really wanted to focus on one line in particular that you mentioned in your report. Yes, I do appreciate that you will be doing your final report, your final, of course, observer report. However, the comments that you made are things that can't possibly change in your report. You said, in some aspects of the harmonized election fell short of the requirements of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, the Electoral Act, and the SADC principles and guidelines governing democratic elections 2021. Now, I'm assuming if you make a statement in this, it's impossible really for that to change in your final report because these are definite statements. Maybe you could briefly highlight to us the issues that this statement falls under. What requirements of the Constitution of Zimbabwe were not met, the Electoral Act were not met, and of course SADC principles and guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Achilles Ngoma. I'm with Women in Politics Support Unit. My question is directed to the SADC forums of the EMBs. From the statement that you read out in regards to women, you seem to restrict yourself to the questions arising out of the special seats. Will this, and you indicated that this was preliminary. My question is, would you be having any remarks in relation to the direct election seats, in other words, the 210 constituencies and the 1,970 direct election seats at ward level for women? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question number 3 here.
Patrick Nija, I'm a freelancer. This question is directed at Dr. Nevas. It's directed at Dr. Nevas Mumba. 2 days ago, the local daily, the Herald, accused you of, to quote them, you're gravitating towards the opposition leader, Nelson Chamisa of the CCC, whom they said you accompanied to Kwazana, where he was casting his vote. And there's also been an accusation that you were hobnobbing with the Western observer missions who are accused of having a preconceived idea of the outcome of the elections. What is your take on that? And maybe your response to this escaped me, or the SADC observer mission's response to this escaped me, but I didn't get it. And why didn't you respond?
My name is Victor Tawasika. I'm a freelancer. My question was, I listened to the reports, and they were saying their observers didn't encounter like incidents of campaigning on the election day. But I came across and I saw on social media, there were flyers of, which were designed in the colors of the opposition party, which were encouraging people not to vote. They were cast across Harare, mainly near the polling stations. So I wanted to ask if their observers didn't come across those stuff, or if it's not like a part of campaigning. I don't know which part, but they were stopping people to vote. And my last, just in cohesion with my question is, that first they were saying, since it was mainly located in rural areas, and if you check the results when they're coming, there are large numbers in rural areas, maybe to a certain party. Can we really say those people voted freely or they were intimidated? Can we really accept those results from rural areas? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The head of ECF SADC has only one question. Maybe I should start with you, then from there we go to the head of the SEO mission. ECF is only one question for him. Yes, ECF is only one question for him.
Thank you. It is correct that we concentrated more on the special quota seats for women and youth. This is the preliminary report, and we had acknowledged the aspects of women and youth seats as a progressive move. The final report will expand on the inclusive and gender aspect in the electoral process. So it will address all other aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Head of SEOM. Head of SEOM, the few questions on your table.
Thank you. Thank you so much, moderator. Let me straight go into the first one by Andy about the provisions that we should quote as the ones that have not been met, which have fallen short within the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I think that my presentation was extremely thorough today. I'm not trying to say anything, but you noticed how much we worked hard to go into the Constitution when we were raising issues, whether it was on the roll, or whether it was on the ballots, whether it was on any subject that I touched. I referred to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, and the provisions are there, and we'll make sure you get a copy of our speech, and you can sit down and make sure that you read the provisions that we have outlined and how we believe that they have been maybe not fully honored in the manner that the Constitution demands. The easier one is that of what we represent. We are SADC. Zimbabwe is a signatory to the SADC protocols. All of us in the SADC understand the guidelines according to our little booklet, which is this one, which has the SADC principles and guidelines on elections. All of us subscribe to this. So the job of this mission is very easy. We take all the issues that we have raised in our report and judge them against our own principles. And our statement in our conclusion makes it clear that not everything, but we say, we actually are very clear to say that, however, for reasons outlined above, the mission noted that some aspects of these regulations and the Constitution of Zimbabwe have not been met as is expected of any nation which is, subscribes to SADC. So if we didn't say that, we'll be lying, and we'll be creating a totally wrong perception about SADC. We think that there are many things that should have been done in the way that we prescribe for ourselves, and they were not done. So even that is also quoted. The guidelines are also quoted in my speech. And so those that are breached are quoted, and I think you can help yourself with that. Okay. The other one is, you asked us, let me start with your second question, concerning the accusation against SADC that we escorted candidate Chamisa to go and vote. First of all, let me say the reason we did not comment or answer it, we laughed about it because it is totally, it's a ridiculous statement. We come here to observe every participant. Just a day before, we were with President Mnangagwa, and we went through many things there. And before then, the first group we met was Mr. Mpofu, the Secretary General of ZANU-PF, with his entire team. And we exchanged ideas. So if you take a picture with me and Mr. Mpofu, and you support CCC, then you create a story. He has been, he's favoring ZANU-PF. Then you don't understand the role of observers. If we don't go where he is, how will we observe? Observing means you are seeing. So we went to see, but we did not go with him. That was the naughtiness of that story. And that is why we did not answer it. Somebody decided to say, we went to see, we went with him. No, we didn't. We were at that polling station when Mr. Chamisa came. We made no contact with him. We didn't speak with him. We were observing from far. He left without any eye contact. And if that is wrong, then why are we here? Why do we come here and put on these jackets if we are not supposed to see what these people are doing? What if he had been beaten there, or he claims that they didn't allow him to vote? How do we know? How do we stand by that if we never observe? So I think that is, we felt, sorry for using this word, we felt it was a cheap article which might have had a reason behind it. That's really what we say. And let me be clear, this country is Zimbabwe. And I hope this doesn't get me into trouble again. This is where President Mugabe comes from. a man that really explained to us in the region what it means to be nationalistic. We don't do these elections, and we need to get that out of our minds. This thing going around that you are West or East. Some of us, and the SADC principles, we don't do these elections for the West or for the East. We do them for ourselves. And if we are not original in the manner we're doing these elections, we always point at each other, you're with your West. When they're voting in America, do they say we are on Africa's side or we are on Asia's side? They just vote on their side. And so I think let's get away from that and concentrate on what is our interest as Africa, as Africans, and as we vote. Let's not always say we are doing it for this one or for that one. Let's do it for ourselves. I thought it was important for me to clear that. I didn't want to talk about it, but you started it. That's why I have decided to answer it. No, sir. We were basically doing our job for which we were sent by our bosses from Botswana to make sure that we do the right thing. There's another question about the flyers. Yes. Yeah, we had, did you want to say something about the flyers? Do you remember that? We saw the flyers. All we can say ourselves is that it's unfortunate. We've taken note of that, and we are anticipating or expecting, that Zimbabwe itself and the security wings must investigate and find out who is behind that, because I think that affects the electoral process. Some people pick it up, read it, and believe the message that was there, and they don't go and vote. And that is really interfering with the electoral process. So we are demanding that the security wings of Zimbabwe must investigate and find out who is responsible for that, and take them to task. And, if that in any way would have affected the election, I think that is too early to tell. I think let's just say that we have condemned that, and I think it's a desperate move by whosoever did that. I think I'm done for unless one of my colleagues wants to answer a question.
Let me. Yeah. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Let's allow His Excellency AU Commissioner to respond.
Comment?
Thank you very much.
Okay, of course, thank you so much. No question was actually directed at me. It is my good friend. But the first one that all of us probably may have the comment is this person raised the issue of flyers, but I categorize as something like campaigns. It's just like the activities of the FAS people, which were condemned in our report. And these activities must be made criminal offenses in a country. Because election campaigns normally stop 24 hours before the election. And on that election day, you are not even expected to wear the vest of your political party. In some cases, if you wear the vest of your political party to go and vote, when the matter goes to court, they will show that you were campaigning on the election day. So I think we discussed this thing with the key stakeholders, including the president of the country, and that we felt that the idea of 300 meters radius, because the law for now said that it's just election campaigns, they stop 24 hours before the election. But the law again said that the ZEC can only control 300 meters radius. That outside 300 meters radius, people can do some kind of things that are not expected. So to me, the law that stops campaign must also prohibit any political activity in whatever form, whether flyers or flags or people putting tables and checking vote, whether their members are voting. No, that election day is apolitical. Everybody just go there as an individual to vote and go. And so that's what we also included in our own recommendation. Then the other one is, though it was not directed at me, but I was surprised when the SADC head of observation mission was accused of going with a particular candidate to vote. And because I've been observing a number of elections, let me tell the public, we all do that. If we any of the presidential candidates, we know where I did not observe any because none of them voted around Harare that my team worked. But normally, when we observe elections, if we know that a key political figure, especially the presidential candidates, or provincial governors and so on, depending on the country, are going to vote, we normally go and observe what happened in that voting unit. Because that voting unit becomes a unit of interest. Because any senior, for example, where I will vote, people will feel that I will do everything to win that my polling unit. So even in my country, where I'm going, all the observers will go and be waiting for me. Everybody wants to see me vote before they will leave. So that is normal, and all observer missions do. So it's not only the SADC. And the issue that you see, this accusation sometimes comes that a leader of observation team is following this or following this. At least we must be a bit careful. Because when we go to a country to observe elections, we interact with everybody, local and international. We interact with everybody. That if you see me interacting with somebody who comes from outside Africa or outside the SADC zone, that's nothing to compromise my interest. We share information. We also try to get information. They also give us information. And these informations we get from everybody help us to do, engage the people we need to engage in terms of mediation and in terms of getting some useful information. Because election observation missions interact with everybody, every stakeholder that you can, to get the information you need to assess the credibility of the electoral process, and so on and so forth. So please let us not just accuse people anyhow. Take time to find out whether what you suspect is correct or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. This brings us to the end of the Q&A. We appreciate the questions that we received from the media and the responses from the high table here. I have a few announcements to make. One is that all the statements from the missions, you'll find them when you get out of the door. All the statements of the missions. When you leave, they're just outside. Secondly, the CEO mission is inviting you for lunch, which is now in Jacaranda 1 and 2 in M1 floor. From the reception, you take M1 floor, you go up to the lunch area. Then the last one is that all SIOM observers were expected to come back here. What's the time now? Let's come back at 4 o'clock for the briefing by the head of mission. Thank you very much for your patience. Please remain seated while the high table is leaving the podium. Also, members of the media, you are free to interview them outside should you wish to do so. Thank you. Thank you, sir.